So how do we now check who won and who lost? Well, for that, we need to basically check the health values, the player and the monster health. That is what matters to us here. And hence, we could add if checks here after we attacked the player. So after both the monster and the player got attacked, here we could check if this player health is smaller than 0, in which case the player lost. And we could check if maybe also the monster health is below 0, and so on. But we would have to repeat this check. We would have to repeat this check in the special attack monster function and also in the heal player function, because maybe we healed ourselves, but the monster still dealt too much damage and we still died. So repeating the same code in all those places, that's not what I want to do, because repeating code is never good. If we ever decide to change something, we need to change it in a lot of different places, and therefore we want to avoid that. Instead, with View, we have a nicer way of keeping track of something and then doing something in reaction to that. We could add a watcher. So I'm going to add watchers here by adding the watch option to the configuration object. And here I want to watch two properties, the player health and the monster health. So we add a watcher for the player health property. And as you learned, this name is now not up to you. Instead, that has to be the name of a property you want to watch. And here I want to watch this player health property. And hence I'll also add a second watcher where I watch the monster health, like this. You also learned that we get the values then of those watched values whenever the watcher triggers. And therefore, let's now start in the player health watcher. There we need a regular if check where we check if the value, so the player health, is smaller or equal than 0, and if, let's say, the monster health also is smaller or equal than 0. In that case, we would have a draw, because both participants are below 0. Now, another case would be if just the value is smaller or equal than 0. So the first condition is not met, but the value, so the player health, is below 0 or equal to 0. Then we know the player lost. We don't need to check the monster health being smaller than 0 here, because we're going to do this in the monster health watcher. There, indeed, I want to check if the value, so now the monster health, is smaller or equal than 0, and if the player health is smaller or equal than 0. In this case, as mentioned, we have a draw. Or else if just the value of the monster is smaller than 0, then the monster lost. Now, of course, I am aware that if we take the monster below 0 and it then hits us and takes us below 0, both watchers fire because both healths changed, and therefore these if checks run twice, and we'll find out that we have a draw twice. This won't be a problem, however, because you will see what we do with this information. We're just going to show something on the screen, and it will only show up once there. So finding out that we have a draw twice will not be a problem. What do we want to do if we have a draw then, or when the player lost, or the monster lost? Well, we probably should display some message on the screen. And for that, let's go to the index.html file, and here above the controls, but below the health bar sections, I'll add a new section now. Give that section a class of container, which will just give it some default styling. And now inside of that section, I want to say game over, and then either say you lost, or you won, or it's a draw, and also present a button to start a new game. And that screams for what? For VIF, because now we have conditional content. First of all, this entire container with the game over message should only be shown if the game really is over. So if we either have a winner or a draw. And then the message below that, something like you lost in a h3 tag, or you won, or it's a draw, those h3 tags should also be shown conditionally depending on who won or who lost. And therefore we need to not only check those values, but also change something which we can then reflect in the HTML code. And that again screams for a data property. Here we could store the winner and initially set this to null, because initially when the game starts we have no winner, of course. But then here, if we have a draw, I want to set this winner equal to draw, let's say. So to a string that says draw. If the player lost, I want to set this winner equal to monster, because the player lost, the monster won. Here it's this winner, which is a draw again. And if the monster lost, this winner, of course, is equal to the player. So now we have the winner data property, which is either null, or if it's not null, holds a string of draw, monster, or player. And we can use that in conjunction with if to conditionally show this entire game over container, but then also the different messages. The entire container can be shown with if indeed winner is truthy. By default, at the beginning, it's null, and that is treated as a falsy value in JavaScript. So if I set if winner and winner is null, this section will not show up because null is interpreted as false. If it is a string like draw or monster or player, the concrete value does not matter, then this is truthy and therefore this section does show up. Now inside of the section we also need if. Here on the h3 elements. I want to show you lost if winner is equal to monster. Else if, and for that we can use the else if directive, I want to show the second h3 tag if winner is equal to player. Because if the player won, I want to show you won. And last but not least, with else, we can show it's a draw. We could also use else if to check if winner is equal to draw, but since we know that we only have those three options, I can also just use else. With that added, if we now reload, you see initially we have nothing here. By the way, when the game loads, you briefly see that other content show up until the Vue framework is downloaded. That is something we'll also tackle later in the course. Later we'll have a different setup where this initial flickering is not visible, just as a side note. But here, that is our starting setup now. And now let's try to end the game. And let's see who's going to win. Okay, looks like we lost. The health bars are not reflecting this because they basically don't go into the negative, they don't reach 0, but we see the you lost message. Now let's reload and let's try to win. So for that, we need to use the special attack and also heal ourselves a little bit here. Special attack, attack, heal ourselves maybe, special attack, and we won. And let's see if we can achieve a draw here. I'm not sure. Well, I won again. Here it is, I was able to achieve a draw as well. So this seems to work, we're showing the proper message here. Now let's make sure we also do restart the game thereafter if we do have such a draw. And let's maybe also update the health bar correctly to really have an empty health bar if the game is over.